Hello everyone, this is SWTOR Snoopy here, back with another video. Today I have for you guys a Star Wars Republic guide video on soloing world bosses with the level sync system. Now I made a video about this in the past, but I don't feel like I was clear enough and my points that weren't very well established, so I'm creating this updated guide. There will be timestamps in the video description for each point I talk about in the guide, and the point being discussed will be on the top left of the screen inside the video itself. This will mainly consist of general tips and strategies to help with all of the world bosses you may try and solo in the game. Now, I'm not going to be soloing a world boss while talking and such, but I will have a link in the description down below of the multitude of bosses I've soloed and that others in the community have done as well. I will also be doing examples with a world boss just inside the actual guide to help kind of illustrate what is actually needed and what should be done to help with succeeding in taking down these enemies. So that's all I have for the intro, so I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the guide. Alrighty guys, we're in the guide right now. So the first little tip that I have in this video is to pick your class. Now it seems simple enough, but depending on the class that you actually pick, it can completely change the outcome of a fight and could increase your chances in succeeding in taking down one of these bosses. Now I personally recommend the Commando / Mercenary combo. If you're on the Republic, obviously you can pick Commando, and if you're on the Imperial side, then you pick Merc. But any class can work if you just want to make it work, or you can just try to. The main reason I say that the Commando and Merc combo is recommended is because these abilities that they have are very, very useful. They have a reactive shield that reduces damage, that can actually re-heal the more damage you take. There's a reflective shield that can heal you back up. You can off-heal as well, but the most important thing is you most likely are going to want to pick a class that has an off-heal or something to just help out with reducing the damage overall. This is why I personally pick the Commando whenever I decide to solo these world bosses, but it's entirely possible. I mean, a Guardian could work, a Sword could work. There's a lot of different classes that can work, and I honestly believe that if you play your cards right, you can try to make almost any class in the game work. But if you were to ask me, I would say that the Commando / Mercenary are most likely the best classes to use if you want to take on these enemies. So that's just going to be the first tip right there. The second one is going to be learn Enrage timers / DPS checks. Now, an important thing to note with these bosses is that they will enrage fast, and they need extremely fast DPS to kill. For example, there is a video that I have linked in the description down below that is the Terrorist World Boss. This is a fight where you have to DPS the boss as quickly as possible, otherwise he will enrage and essentially two-shot you. So it entirely depends on the boss, but all these are going to require you to multi-manage, and you're going to have to focus on just DPSing down the boss while also keeping yourself alive. So not only that leads into the third point, which is utilize companion abilities. Now, as you can tell, I currently am on Alderaan. This is the Alderaan world boss, so I'm just going to show examples right here. So what you want to do with utilizing companion abilities is whenever you're in a fight, you're going to want to have your heroic moment active. You're going to want to use this as much as possible. And you're also going to want the Unity ability. These are important because this reduces 50% of your damage when you activate Unity. Your heroic moment heals you, and it also gives you special abilities that you've unlocked with different classes. And then not only that, if your companion does die, you can combat res them. The most important thing to realize when soloing these bosses is you actually can't use your companion. Whenever I attack bosses, they will completely just I can say they will stun my companion, and my companion will not be able to do anything. So let me just show you for an example right here. I'm going to attack this world boss. He's going to throw some abilities, and then my companion's going to try to heal. But as you can tell, he isn't going to be able to do anything. So I can use Unity to reduce the damage currently while the boss attacks me. But I can also use my heroic moment just to heal me back up. And I can also use a bunch of different abilities. That is the most important thing to note about this, is it's a game of just comboing and just trying to dish out damage. So currently my companion is alive, and depending on the boss fight, they may live or they might not live. It totally depends. But eventually my companion will die, and once he dies, I'm not going to be able to use my heroic moment and or unity, so I can combat res him. That's also why it can be useful to use a commando in another class that has combat res and off heals, is simply because you can just res your companion and just do different things along the lines of that. So I'm going to leave this boss fight since I don't want to really fight him just yet, just to get into this. So I'm just going to run away. He's going to disappear. But that's the main point that you have to realize, is that your companion will be useless unless you're soloing the lucky boss fight on Corellia. In every other boss fight, your companion will be useless. But the only thing they can be useful for is that heroic moment, that unity, and another combat res to just help refresh the whole entire process. So that's just all I have for utilizing companion abilities. Now the next tip is going to be line of sight. So this is necessary for the majority of world bosses. For example, with this boss, what you're going to have to do is once you get him to a low percentage, you're going to have to hide around rocks and just play the waiting game of damaging him and just not letting him see you. So for example, I'll just try to do it right here. So this is the boss currently, obviously. I'm just going to attack him right now. And he's going to start doing an ability, right? As you can tell, he's using Fusion Missile. Now, this doesn't always work. It depends on the boss. But as you can tell, he's going to run over to me. He's going to try to attack me. But I can just line of sight, just fail that ability. And I can just go back and forth, just DPSing him down. Now, as you can tell, he uses different abilities. So you will have to time stuff right. But the main point is you want to delay him as much as you possibly can. As you can tell, line of sighting does work. I'm taking a lot of damage, obviously, because I am not doing this probably in the best way, because he is shooting missiles down. But the main point is LOS is crucial. It is something that you need to absolutely focus on, and it can save you in the long run. So obviously I didn't give the best definition of LOS or line of sight, but it is hiding around a corner to heal or help abilities change. You can also just go around the corner back and forth DPSing the boss, and it will just help out. The important thing to note is that even when a boss is enraged, hiding behind the corner and getting a quick burst of damage can work to take down an enemy, and it can also be a way to recharge abilities, just heal up. A line of sight is very crucial, and it can save you in a lot of scenarios. With this boss in particular, I know that in order to defeat him, I had to use LOS, since he did enrage when he was down to 30%. I actually don't remember the percentage, but it definitely wasn't really, really low, almost to the point where you just had to get an extra quick second of damage to beat him. But I used LOS around this corner. I was just trying to just fight him, and then he was sometimes throwing stuff down, but it would fail some of his abilities, so I could quickly heal up and not have to worry about too many things. But on some bosses, like the SWTOR world boss, you can use LOS technically, but when I took down that boss, I wasn't really necessary. I was just able to out DPS him before the Enrage just obliterated me. And then with the Terrorist world boss, the line of sight isn't very useful, since you just have to completely DPS him down. It's a pure DPS race. It's entirely situational, and that's why I do recommend looking at the videos that I linked in the description down below, since some of the bosses are completely different. And I don't mean that as like, oh, a shameless plug, but like I said, a lot of these bosses are kind of situational, but I'm just trying to make general tips just depending on which one you want to tackle, and these should work for the most part, but obviously it just depends on the boss. But I know for a fact LOS can save you, and it is very important if you want to succeed. So the next little tip is going to be timing defensives. So the more you fight a particular boss, the more you find out about how they attack in what order. This will help since timing defenses are very useful, and they can help you stay alive while maximizing DPS and staying safe. So once again, I'm going to attack the world boss, and I will show you what I mean. So with the commando, what I like to do is I like to get some DPS in and not worry too much about interrupts just yet. So he's going to use an ability. I'm going to reflect it. He's going to take a lot of damage, and it's going to heal me up. So it's a little grace period. I can just DPS him down a ton and not have to worry about literally anything. And then I can use an interrupt. I'm going to activate my reactive shield. And as you can tell, when I get hit with my reactive shield, I get some stabilizers that will heal me back up. And these are useful because they will get me back to full HP or very near it when I am taking damage from an ability. And as I said, I can heal back up. And then each time he's attacking me, I'm just waiting for the cooldown to just fix itself on my defensives. And I'm just going to continue to time them. Like I said, I'm just going to heal back up. I'm taking some damage. It's not fun, but I just have to continue to heal. Wait for just my defensives to go back up. So as you can tell, my reactive shield is just going to repeat while I am off healing and just not worrying about much. And that's all you have to do. Now I have reactive shield back up. This gives me a grace period since I'll go back to full HP, so I can get in a quick burst of DPS. That's the way that you want to do it. It's basically a game of saving your defensive, just deciding what you're going to use, and then getting back to near full HP so you can just dish out some more DPS. So once again, I am going to leave this boss fight, but that is the most important thing to note with this. Obviously, all these points are important, but timing defensives is very critical, since if you time your defensives very carefully, then you can just kind of get into a rhythm where you're not taking damage. You don't have to worry about damage too much, but and you can also just hurt the boss just at the very same time. So that's all I have on that point right there. And then the next little tip slash pointer is going to be to move. Now, I really can't stress this enough, but simply moving around will help with combating these bosses. For example, with the Lucky boss on Corellia, that whole fight is just me running around, just DPSing him down, while not trying to get hit, since he doesn't really hit you if you're just running away from him. So that can work with honestly any player depending on what your class is. Running away can work. And then as you saw with this boss, he throws the little missile things down, so you need to move out of them because they will kill you. And the same can be said for the majority of the boss fights, is if you move around, you're less likely to get hit by certain things, and it can be useful, since if you aren't getting hit by an enemy, you'll be taking less damage. Therefore, you'll be able to do more DPS, and you'll have a chance to heal yourself back up. Because if I just stood completely still against this guy, like for example right here, it's just not going to be smart, because now he's going to activate his fusion missile. He's going to drop this on me, and I'm just going to constantly take damage. I mean, as you can tell, I'm just draining my HP, and then I'm going to die, just as simple as that. So movement is a key. It is something that should be looked at, and it should be highly considered when taking on these fights. Now, as a little bonus tip out of all these that I want to include before I end off this guide, is going to be just simply gear. So gear with secondary stats such as critical chance won't be affected by the level sync. So things like power and base damage will change, but things like critical rating and accuracy don't really have an effect. So if you look at my gear currently, I have 42% critical rating. I have this multiplier, but as you can tell, I mean, I have all this level 70 gear, some 248, but if you notice, my power has gone down a ton because I'm on a planet where it is changing my level to level 34. My HP is different, my base damage, all that different stuff is different. But if you notice, my alacrity hasn't really changed, my critical rating's still there, and my accuracy is still there. So the most important thing to note is if you have a different set of gear that has more crit or something along the lines of that, this can be useful with actually taking on these bosses, because you will still be able to crit a ton. You still will be able to just get some increased alacrity and accuracy. So gear actually can play a role in these fights, surprisingly. A lot of people don't realize that, but if you have some good gear, it can be helpful in these fights, because even though they are secondary stats, they aren't just the base power and damage. Sometimes if you get extra crits and you have some good alacrity and accuracy, you can just DPS the boss even faster, and then you won't have to worry too much about the excessive healing and all the different stuff that appear with just taking on these bosses. But those are all my points that I had to go over in this video with this guide on soloing world bosses. I know that it's not the 100% most professional guide, but I felt like it could be of use, and I feel like it is important, since if you do want to tackle these challenges, then this video can be useful, and it can be a way to just get jump started on that. But as I said just in the middle of this video, as a quick little disclaimer, is that these bosses are all different. These are mainly general tips, and as I said, I did link videos of just the different boss fights that I've done, and also bosses that have been done by the community, since other people have essentially had this idea as well and have just taken them on. And that's the most important thing to really note here, is that you can do this. It is possible, and it is a very fun and enjoyable time. So that's going to be it for this Star Wars Republic guide video. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.